Have you ever stopped to wonder what's actually happening inside a musician's head? I mean, not just when they're reading notes off a page, but in that incredible moment when they just start creating music from nothing. It feels like two totally different skills, right? Well, as it turns out, the brain completely agrees.
So, let's start with this quote from the absolute legend, pianist Keith Jarrett. When someone asked him about playing classical music and then improvising jazz in the same show, he said his system demands different circuitry. He could literally feel his brain having to switch gears for each task. But what is that different circuitry?
And for the longest time, that was the million-dollar question. Was he just speaking metaphorically, or was something truly measurably different going on inside his skull? Well, now we finally have the technology to actually see it for ourselves.
To solve this mystery, scientists couldn't just ask musicians how it felt. No, they needed to see that circuitry in action. And thanks to some amazing wearable tech, they could finally get a peek inside a musician's brain in real time while they were actually playing.
The key piece of gear here is called fNIRS. Now, don't let the name scare you. It's basically this non-invasive headband that shines a special kind of light into the brain. Here's the simple idea. When a part of your brain starts working harder, it calls for more oxygen-rich blood. So by tracking where that blood goes, fNIRS gives us a live map of what parts of the brain are firing up.
Okay, so armed with this cool tech, researchers started with a really fascinating subject, a super-skilled expert musician. They wanted to see what a master's brain looks like when it flips that switch into creative mode. And what they found, well, it was the complete opposite of what you'd probably guess.
The experiment itself was brilliantly simple. They took one expert musician, someone with over 30 years of experience playing both by-the-book classical and off-the-cuff improv, and how to do two things. First, play music directly from a score. Second, just improvise, make it all up on the spot, all while that fNIRS headset was watching her brain.
And this is where it gets really wild. When she was doing the most creative, mentally demanding task, improvising, a huge part of her brain actually powered down. We're talking about the prefrontal cortex, which is like the brain's CEO. It handles all the big picture stuff, planning, decision-making, self-criticism, and it just went quiet.
Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds completely backward, right? But this wasn't her brain getting lazy. It was the exact opposite. What they were seeing was the neural signature of flow. It's what athletes call being in the zone. It's a state of such incredible mastery that the conscious judgmental part of the brain can just switch off, letting pure, effortless creativity take over.
So, okay, that's the expert brain. But what about a brain that's still learning how to improvise? To figure that out, researchers did a similar experiment, this time with a whole group of musicians who were amazing at reading music, but had basically zero experience just making it up.
And for these 25 musicians, when they were asked to improvise, their brains did the complete opposite of the experts. Their prefrontal cortexes, that same CEO region, didn't power down. They lit up like a Christmas tree. There was widespread activation all over the place. Their brains were working way, way harder.
This just raises a massive question, doesn't it? Is more brain activity actually better? Does all that activation mean they were somehow being more creative? Or is it telling us something else is going on? To get to the bottom of that, we need one more clue.
And that clue comes from a totally different study, this one on guitarists. What these researchers did was brilliant. They measured brain activity during performances the guitarists themselves rated as their best, and then they compared it to their worst. This gives us a direct link between what the brain is doing and how good the music actually sounds.
And the results? They were crystal clear. During their absolute worst performances, the guitarist's brain showed way more activity in the parietal lobe, which is involved in movement and sensation. This extra activity wasn't a sign of creative brilliance. It was a sign of struggle. It was the brain working overtime, consciously trying to fix mistakes.
And that, right there, is the aha moment. All that widespread activation we saw in the learning musicians, it wasn't the signature of peak creativity. It's the signature of a brain that's deep in problem-solving mode, consciously thinking through every single move. For them, improvisation was a brand new, difficult puzzle, so the brain's CEO had to be on high alert, managing the whole process.
So now we've got our two big clues. Experts power down, while learners power up. Let's put all these pieces together and see what the whole journey from novice to master really looks like inside the brain.
It really seems to be a two-step journey. You start out as a novice. Your brain shows that widespread activation because it's working hard, thinking through the problem and fixing errors on the fly. But if you stick with it, you reach the expert stage. The brain has learned the pattern so well that all that conscious effort just isn't needed anymore. The CEO can take a break and you slip into that beautiful, effortless state of flow.
So what's the one thing that connects all of this? It's actually really simple: perceived difficulty. For the classical musicians learning to improvise, the task felt hard, so their brains went into overdrive. For the expert, it was second nature, so her brain could relax into that flow state. The brain just chooses the right tool for the job, based on how hard it seems.
And this gives us such a powerful new way to think about skill. We have this idea that genius means using 100% of your brain, firing on all cylinders. But this research shows it's the opposite. True mastery isn't about neural brute force, it's about neural efficiency. It's about training your brain to work smarter, not harder, so it can do incredible things almost without thinking. So this leaves us with one last question, and this one's for you. If that amazing state of effortless, creative flow is waiting on the other side of that difficult, high-effort phase, what skill in your life is worth pushing through for? What could you master?